a conflict between man and nature. When there is a conflict between man and nature, a solution can be found through science and technology. This is one of the conflicts we have. The second conflict is between man with other men. Of course, in connection to this conflict, a solution can be found through politics. Politics is answerable when there are some disputes between man with other men. You know very well. Last but not the least, you have a conflict with yourself and conflict with myself. How can I resolve my own conflict? How can you resolve your own conflict? It requires a lot of drill to understand your own conflicts. By way of meditation, yoga, or eternal values, or on the basis of religious perceptions, you can overcome such a kind of problems which are highly expressive within you. Just now you have been actually understood on the basis of a explanation given by Swami Dayanidhi. You know how, in what manner you are going to put aside your personal grudges and enmities over others. You should understand it. One should put aside personal grudges and enmities over others. That is what the, what shall I say, the rule of law has come in. As I said, what is rule of law? Rule according to law, which is highly distinguished with the rule of jungle. There are some controversial issues and challenges when you are actually dealing with human rights. So instead of just sharing few rights like civil rights, political rights, economic rights, social rights, and solidarity rights, I think it would be pertinent to understand few conflicting interests which are highly expressive within the limits of the human rights law as such. Let us understand each one of them. We don't know how, in what manner the conflicts can be resolved. However, it is the right time to understand what are our conflict resolutions. That's very, very important. Whether egg is first, hen is first. Whether military necessity is first, humanity is first. Whether seed is first, plant is first. Men are first, women are first. Who are first? I think it would be virtually impossible to clear certain doubts which are highly expressive when it comes to the knowledge of conflict resolution as such. Then what kind of conflict resolution you would be expecting when you are actually running with human rights discourses are concerned? What are rights? Right, it is an interest. It is an interest recognized, protected by law. It is an interest recognized and protected by law. Where there is a right, there is a duty. Where there is a duty, there is a liability. This is our dual relations. One has to understand as long as you are running with human rights are concerned. No matter, however it could be, of course, much has been discussed on human rights. Nothing is left out to me. Yeah, I agree with you. Based on United Nations organization and its half-century enactments, it is because of United Nations organization and its half-century enactments, we are actually sitting here to understand what are human rights, what are the contents in it, and how, in what manner human rights are supposed to be taught, even in the classroom, elsewhere on this Earth planet as such. Of course, no doubt, when we talk on these, there are some illustrations shall also be looked upon. Perhaps you may have gone through one of the illustrations. Take for an example, wolf is actually standing before sheep and demanding, sheep, I have a right to food, I want to kill you. Then sheep replied, however you might have got right to food, I have a right to life, you cannot kill me. So these are the conflicting interests we have when you are actually running with a right to food and right to life as such. How do you balance the interest between right to food and right to life? That's why, Charles Darwin in philosophy has already been outspoken to clear some doubts between right to life and right to food as such. This is one of the illustrations I'm just giving you to understand certain thought-provoking issues which are highly expressive under the umbrella of human rights law as such. When you deal with equality and fairness, how do you balance the interest between equality and the fairness as such? There are many examples with you to understand equality and the fairness as such. Look at Article 14 of the Constitution of India, wherein it has outspoken on like should be treated alike, unlike should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. This is what Article 14 of the Constitution of India has already been outspoken. This is what your as many as philosophers have already been outspoken on the human values or human rights or fundamental freedoms or fundamental rights. How, in what manner these rights are supposed to be, understood, and where exactly you have come from. That has to be looked upon. First of all, let me share with you, you should know where exactly you have come from. Then only you appreciate where are you going. That is very, very important from the point of view of understanding human rights are concerned. Honestly speaking, when you deal with the conceptual analysis on human rights, of course, you require a lot of illustrative approaches and practical implications. You can put a fundamental question, why laws are favoring women? My answer is very simple. It is because of historical injustice and practical denials, laws are favoring women. When we were actually deciding a case, Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan's case in 1997 before Honorable Supreme Court of India, we did not find a definition on what the sexual harassment at working place was. Fortunately, India was one of the member countries of this convention, International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, 1979 as such. That's why the Supreme Court of India went through a definition which is actually widespread under the umbrella of this convention as such. You know very well, it is because of efforts made at UNO and its half-century enactments. You have had so many enactments, I agree with you. You have UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, then International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966, International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, 1966. You have Vienna Action Plan, Beijing Declarations. All in all, you have had soft law and hard law as such, with a view to understand human rights from different dimensions are concerned. You know very well, each state has got its own an autonomy. It can pass any legislation, amend any legislation, and repeal any legislation as such. Such a kind of an autonomy has already been given under Article 2, paragraph 1 of UN Charter 1945 as such. So with these few observations, understanding human rights, of course, is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill to understand them. Perhaps you may have gone through, part 3 of the Constitution of India, wherein you find fundamental rights, especially in part 4th, which has been actually dealing with directive principles of state policies. Analytically, when you are actually understanding part 3rd and part 4th of the Constitution of India, you do have some controversial issues based on soft law and hard law as such. Soft law and hard law. What is soft law and what is hard law? This is all about to be looked upon. Soft law is a mere expression of preference. This is what Asif Qureshi has defined in a book. The title of the book is International Economic Law. In international economic law, in fact, Asif Qureshi has defined what is a soft law. Soft law means it is mere expression of preference, though it is actually framed on the basis of political ideologies. Soft law will play an important role in absence of hard legislations are concerned. So that's why I must share with you, being a student of law, these observations like soft laws and hard laws should go hand in hand when you are actually understanding rights of people all over the world as such. Why internationalization of human rights came in? There is a relevance from the standpoint. It means some of the states are not interested to protect their own people. That's why internationalization of human rights was actually widespread and established at the international level as such. Thanks to UNO and its half-century enactments in bringing human values at the higher level as such. So look at the preamble of UN Charter 1945, wherein it has outspoken on human values shall also be looked upon. It starts with, we the people of United Nations determined to save the succeeding generation from the scourge of war, which is untold sorrow, which cannot be enforced in otherwise manner. I agree. Still, there is a long way in order to understand the human sufferings, especially during First and Second World War as such. Since then, we have been actually talking more on actually the promotion and encouragement of human rights are concerned. Look at the entire UN Charter 1945. The concept of protection of human rights nowhere defined, but it talks about the promotion and encouragement of human rights. And moreover, if rather I would say, this is what International Law Commission has come out with a draft articles on state responsibility for wrongful acts 2001 as such, which was actually drafted by 5 special rapporteurs of International Law Commission as such. They have outspoken with a view to understand the concept of state responsibility as such. What is concept of state responsibility? If a state violates an international obligation, then the state responsibility would come into picture. I must share with you in nutshell, a state should be a protector of human rights. A state shall not be a violator of human rights. In that context, I have emphasized on the basis of UN Charter 1945 as such. See, when you deal with these human values or human rights, there are some general rules and special rules. It is because of general rules and special rules you are just sitting and understanding what are human rights, how in what manner human rights should be taught or should be disseminated to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. In nutshell, I can say you have to give justice to the people who are left out in the society as such. This is what we are Krishnaya, the former justice, has already been outspoken in many platforms. What he says, access to justice is one among human rights. Access to justice is one among human rights that has to be looked upon. And moreover, poverty that itself is a violation of human rights. Poverty that itself is a violation of human rights. That has to be looked upon. What is poverty? You know very well. How, in what manner you are going to understand poverty? See, during Indira Gandhi period, she had a slogan, Garibi Hatao. How not manner that Garibi Hatao is actually successful country like India as such has to be debated. And moreover, as you've already been understood, based on certain developments that are taken place at the international level as such, especially in connection to well-being of people or right to development as such. In 1986, we came across with a declaration on right to development 1986. What does it mean? How in what manner right to development has already been outspoken at the international level. So with these traditions, in 2000, in fact, Millennium Development Goals came in at the higher level as such. In a silver linings, in 2015, as you have already been understood, see 17 million goals expressed at the international level. I mean, Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030 established. Why these goals have come in? These goals have come in with a view to, give more importance to economic well-being of people all over the world as such. So that's why, as I said, on the basis of some conflicting interest, there are so many conflicting interests, unresolved issues and challenges also. How do you overcome and where exactly you can find some solutions? That's very, very important from the point of view of understanding human rights are concerned. You know very well, as I said, whether egg is first, hen is first, plant is first, seed is first, military necessity is first, humanity is first, women are first, men are first. It's very difficult to be answerable. However, it requires a lot of drill. And moreover, you know very well, my wife cannot ask me to have mother womb. How can I have mother womb? I am biologically imbalanced. And you cannot ask a lion, leopard, or tiger, go and have, green grass or, leaves in a thick forest. Basically, they are all actually biologically imbalanced. Or else, in otherwise, you can say, or you cannot direct, a rabbit, go and have meat. No, it's actually biologically imbalanced. That has to be looked upon when you are actually running with human rights from a different dimensions are concerned. So I must share with you, as and when you deal with right to development, what is right? Right, it is an interest recognized and protected by law. Where there is a right, there is a duty. Where there is a duty, there is a liability. This is our concern to show at the higher level as such. If at all you want to enjoy your life, first of all, you have to understand what are the rights of others. That is all about emphasized in many platforms are concerned. So from these observations, you have your own normative foundations and institutional buildings. More than 17 specialized agencies of United Nations organization are running with human values. That has to be looked upon. You have UNICEF, UNESCO, International Labour Organization, International Civil Aviation Organization you have. Then International Bank for Reconstruction Development you have. IBRD you have, IMF you have, IDA you have, IFC you have, all in all. So these are the institutional buildings which are helpful with you to understand human rights all over the world as such. And as you have already been known, that human rights have no boundaries. They are there everywhere. And you can put a fundamental question, sir, what are international human rights law? And how in what manner human rights law shall also be looked upon. So that's why before 1945, nothing was possible. We had just theories, philosophers, conceptual analysis, and theories we had. We did not find, certain specific legislations which were helpful for the promotion and encouragement of human rights of these people. So that's why, with a view to overcome all these issues and challenges at the international level, internationalization of human rights came in with humanitarian law and the locomotion approaches are concerned. So that's why when you are actually running with the human rights, understanding League of Nations, Council Act, why League of Nations utterly failed. There are many reasons for its failure. It did not strictly private war. It did not, follow minimum procedure, which was highly expressive at the international level. When Hitler invaded on some places, it was actually sitting as if a silent spectator. When China invaded on Finland, it was actually looking as if a silent spectator. And moreover, if rather I would say, it had some deficiency in its manifestations. Look at the preamble of a League of Nations, wherein it starts with we the people of contracting states. It does not say we the people of United Nations. It was one of the major issues and challenges of a League of Nations. And in nutshell, I can say League of Nations did not fulfill its manifestations, and it did not restore or maintain international peace and security as such. That's why it is to be called as a child of war. When League of Nations was actually collapsed, then United Nations organization was actually established to restore or maintain international peace and security at the international level as such. So that's why there shall be minimum standard of justice. As I said, access to justice is one among human rights. This is what your V.R. Krishnaiyer has already been outspoken. We need justice. See, when you look from the perspective of rightistic observations, your rights have come through on the basis of a value of utility. This is what your J.S. Mill has pointed out. According to him, right has come through on the basis of a value of utility. Whereas in case of Karl von Savigny of Germany and Henry Maine of UK, United Kingdom, what they say, your rights have come through on the basis of cultural variables. So based on cultural variables, you can have some fruits of justice. This is what Karl von Savigny and Henry Maine, they have already been outspoken at the higher order as such. This is what one has to understand as and when you deal with human rights are concerned. First of all, you have to understand what are your duties towards others. You know very well, Kriya and Karma. Kriya for yourself, Karma for others. They should go hand in hand sometimes. Any contrary and contradictory meaning, you will be facing a lot of issues and challenges in a given society as such. That has to be looked upon. An individual should have had some obligations on the part of others. That is the dharma you have. What is dharma? One vows a duty towards others. That's what I said. When there is a right, there is a duty. When there is a duty, there is a liability as such. This is all about your dual relations one has to understand. And moreover, if rather you would say, when you are actually running with duties and rights, I respect your truth. Please respect my truth. That is the strength you have. This is what your Swami Vivekananda has already been pointed out. Our religion has taught us not only a tolerance, but also acceptance. That's very, very important from the point of view of understanding the human values from or through Swami Vivekananda as such. This is all about, when you deal with the rightistic approaches are concerned. And moreover, you should know where exactly you have come from. Then only you appreciate where are you going. And you have to give voice to the voiceless, and fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. See, this society is mixed with many. You have marginalized sections of the society, weaker sections of the society, and retracted from the society as such. They could be women, children, orphans, internally displaced persons, refugees, for example. Who are these people? Where exactly they have come from? That has to be looked upon. Otherwise, how can you understand, or else how can you balance the interest between ancient and modern jurisprudence? This is what our ancient and modern jurisprudence have taught us to understand human rights from a different dimensions are concerned. Of course, very recently, uh, of course, it has been highly debatable when it comes to the knowledge of the constitutional balances are concerned. You know very well what is constitution, what are the contents in it. Understanding constitution is not so simple. It's not at all a story or a novel or a drama. It talks about socio-economic and cultural aspects of a human being, country like India as such. When you are actually reading and writing constitution, is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill. It's very difficult to be understood, the Constitution of India. When you are actually reading constitution, be a human. That's very important. And moreover, if rather I would say, some people, they read constitution, they understand it. Sometimes they read constitution, they understand constitution, they know how to interpret constitution. When they are just sitting at the higher level, when they are sitting at the policy level, their statements are highly safe cornered statements or sweeping statements you would be expecting. I must share with you, as I said, understanding the Constitution of India is not so simple. It requires a lot of drill. And more, when you are actually running with Bharatakanda, see, what is Bharatakanda? Whatever you have already been defined, it was all about your geographical definition. Whenever you want to go for understanding Bharatakanda, first of all, you have to understand how people are living over here. That is very important. What are their challenges and issues shall also be looked upon. Otherwise, how can you interpret human rights from different dimensions are concerned? Can I just share on the basis of rights which are guaranteed under the umbrella of the Part 3 of Indian Constitution? You just open the Pandora box of Part 3 of Indian Constitution, you will have known so many rights guaranteed. Yeah, I agree with you. However, it is the right time to understand some practical questions which are highly expressive within the limits of the Part 3 of the Constitution of India. So that is what one has to understand from the point of view of the balance the interest between ancient and modern jurisprudence as such. Sometimes it is highly controversial. Few of them are actually very much interested to see the Constitution from different dimensions are concerned. If at all you want to go for changing of the Constitution, which Constitution is going to be brought out in future? So which Constitution you are actually referring to the community as a whole? Do you want to continue with the same as you have already been faced before the coming into force of the Constitution of India? I mean, before 1950. Before 1950, we did not find any parliament to decide. We did not find a federal government to decide everything on this earth planet. Please understand. We had just some commentaries expressed by commentators. We had, Yagnavalkya Smriti, Manusmriti, Narada Smriti, Kautilya Sarthashastra, Upanishads, Vedas, They were actually written by commentators, and there was no scope for interpreting in otherwise manner, because we did not find any parliament to decide all these commentators. It was because of efforts made at the Constituent Assembly debates, you are finding Constitution of India. That should be looked upon when you are actually running with the ancient and modern jurisprudence as such. When you deal with the human rights, it is also one of the highly debatable issues between westernization and easternization. Your westernization has come through on the basis of Christian philosophy, whereas in case of easternization has come through on the basis of Islamic faith. These are the debatable issues. It is because of these debatable issues you may not be able to find out some solutions at the international level as such. When you deal with easternization, there are so many religious groups have established to target civilians or innocent people all over the world. You have Al-Qaeda, Taliban, ISI, Al-Qaeda, and many, including Boko Haram. So all these institutions have already been outspoken with a view to target westernization assets. When you are actually dealing with these two main observations, how can you reach the internationalization of human rights? So that's why you have to balance the interest between municipal law and international law. They should go hand in hand when you are actually implementing human rights at the higher level as such. There shall not be in any manner of a contrary and contradictory meaning between these two main approaches are concerned. I mean, national law or international law as such. These are the two eyes of our jurisprudence to understand the human rights are concerned. That has to be looked upon. When you deal with national law or international law, of course, there are so many theories have already been outspoken. You have monism, dualism, specific adoption theory, pluralistic theory, theory of harmonization, delegation theory, transformation. As many as a theoretical observations we have, with a view to bridge the gap between national and international human rights law as such. Thanks to Bangalore Declaration. In 1988, we had a Bangalore Declaration of Judicial Colloquium. So in this colloquium, in fact, as many as statesmen, they expressed to transfer such kind of international law, international human rights law into the municipal law as such. When you have got some gaps in your municipal law, obviously, international human rights law is answerable to your queries. So in this context, you have to balance the interest between municipal law and the international law as such. That's why when you are actually understanding the transformation of such kind of international law, human rights law into the municipal law, so many cases were actually decided on the basis of these analysis are concerned. Take for an example, you have Muslimani case, Samata case, Vishakhapatnam state of Rajasthan's case, then Jolly and George versus state of Kerala's case. All these cases were actually decided on the basis of application of international human rights law into the municipal law as such. I must share with you, international human rights law is not something. It is highly complementary, residuary, and supplementary to the municipal law as such. That has to be understood. Otherwise, it would be virtually impossible to understand human rights from a different dimensions are concerned. Why international human rights law is helpful? Kindly have a look on. It is convenient for states, and you cannot change their neighbors. I cannot change my own neighbor. My own neighbor cannot change me. Law can only change. Any infringement of law, this law will come into picture. To ensure law, obviously, the rule of law would come into picture. Rule of law. What is rule of law? Rule according to law. No one above the law, even king also under the law and God, you know very well. And perhaps you might have taught in your colleges accordingly. I agree with you. This is all about, one has to understand when you deal with human rights are concerned. With a view to understand human rights, there are so many schools of thoughts have come in. Take for an example, you have utilitarian approaches in which Jeremy Bentham has already been outspoken. What he says, there shall be greatest happiness is the greatest number, and you have to understand pleasure and pain. Pleasure means happiness in our society, pain means social evils. This has to be looked upon on the basis of humanitarian perceptions are concerned. On the other hand, look at pure theory, economic approaches, conduct relationship between antiquity and anthropology, sociological jurisprudence, realistic approach, and Edward said Orientalism. Above all, the postmodernism. You are in postmodernism, kindly understand, because you have already been crossed modernism. What's there in modernism? In modernism, you give more importance to capitalistic movement. So that's why you have to balance the interest between capitalistic movements and the communism as such. With a view to understand the relative terminologies between capitalism and communism, the postmodernistic approach was actually widespread. That has to be looked upon. Look at, as and when you deal with human rights, so then you cannot forget certain philosophical foundations which are highly expressive. What is philosophy? Philosophy is nothing but higher levels of generalization. It's a deep-rooted knowledge. It's not actually based on half-minded or short-minded philosophy. Whatever you are expressing in Mysore should be applicable even for Canadian also. That is all about higher levels of generalization. That should be looked upon. This is what we have emphasized on the basis of Plato's approaches, especially in the Republic, that it would be an ideal state that every member of the community must be assigned to the class for which he finds himself best fitted. And on the other hand, Socrates has also emphasized with developing the idea of a social contract whereby people ought to follow the rules of a society and accept its burdens because they have accepted its benefits are concerned. As long as you are living with society, so long you shall not be forgotten on certain obligations are shouldered on you. This is what Socrates and Plato have already been emphasized on the basis of humanitarian perceptions are concerned. So as long as you are dealing with human rights, so long you shall not be forgotten on the contribution made by John Rawls in his theory of justice. Look at, in the theory of justice, he has emphasized on the basis of basic liberties that every good society should guarantee. There are all, freedom of thought you have, liberty you have, freedom of association you have, political liberties you have, freedoms necessary for the liberty and integrity of a person, namely the freedom from slavery, freedom from movement, and a reasonable degree of freedom to choose one's occupation, rights and liberties covered by the rule of law. These are the aspects which are actually dealt on the basis of the John Rawls approaches are concerned. That should have been actually looked upon when it comes to the knowledge of freedom of thought as such. When you deal with Article 14 of the Constitution of India, wherein it has outspoken on equality. What is equality? Like should be treated alike, unlike should not be treated alike. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand. Of course, some of them are not equal because they are from a very little background. At least for them, social justice economic justice, and political justice should be looked into. It means that your triple justice, especially the triple justice, it could be social justice, economic justice, and political justice should be looked upon. Then what kind of social justice you have? Look at one of the interesting cases decided before Honorable Bombay High Court in Prakash Cotton Mills versus state of Maharashtra, wherein Justice Chakla has emphasized what he says. So without interpreting social justice, law cannot be looked upon. This is what he said. On the other hand, in many platforms, in fact, we are Krishna Ayar, a legendary of thoughts, has already been outspoken with you to understand a social justice concept as well. He said, in order to reach just society, we need to have social justice. On the other hand, Justice Subbarao, when he was actually deciding some cases before Honorable Supreme Court of India, he expressed by saying that in order to reach out the egalitarian society, there shall be social justice. What does it all mean? How in what manner you are going to understand the concept of social justice? How in what manner you are going to understand economic justice or political justice? It requires a lot of drill. This is what, when we are actually understanding human rights of this human being all over the world. In fact, Karl Vasek of UNESCO, who was one of the former directors of UNESCO, he was the only one who classified human rights from the perspective of three generational human rights. You have civil and political rights. They are supposed to be called as if first generational human rights. Economic, social, and cultural rights should be called as second generational human rights. Last but not the least, right to development or solidarity rights should be brought as if third generational human rights are concerned. So from these observations, see, we have been actually outspoken on the human rights from different perspectives are concerned. Look at equality and fairness. When you deal with equality and fairness, I have got my own illustration. Kindly understand. See, a guy left, a will. In his will, there are two things. Number one, blanket is there, one tree is there, and cow is there. He expressed a will and died. He had two kids. One find a elderly called younger one. See, these three things should be shared equally. One is blanket, second tree, third one is cow. Look at elderly called younger one. So we wanted to, or as what he said, we want to, follow the, the will which was actually written by their parents. When it comes to the knowledge of blanket, what elderly directed younger one, I use a blanket during night time. You should use a blanket during daytime. Second, I use, back side of the cow. You should use front side of the cow as such. Then I use the upper layer of a tree. You should use lower layer of the tree. This is one of the glaring examples I'm just sharing with you when it comes to the knowledge of equality and fairness. When you are actually running with equality, fairness shall not be forgotten. They should go hand in hand. Equality and fairness should go hand in hand. Otherwise, it would be virtually impossible to live as human being. This is what Article 14 of the Constitution of India has already been outspoken. Like should be treated alike, unlike should not be treated like. Equality before law and equal protection of law, they should go hand in hand as such. So with these few observations, you have civil liberties, economic growth, political rights, and economic freedoms are concerned. This is what perhaps you may have gone through one of the statements given by, you know, Amartya Sen. What he says, right to development means economic development, well-being of people. You have to see from the perspective of the goals which are actually highly expressive at the international level as such. Look at 17 goals which are highly expressive on the basis of sustainable development goals of 2050 should be looked upon once again. And moreover, if rather I would say, you have to understand human rights from the perspective of LPG system, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. What has happened after the establishment of WTO? This has to be looked upon. Why farmers are committing suicide in India? That has to be looked upon. And why? I mean to say, okay, in India, we have more than 7 lakh internally displaced persons. Who are these people? And where exactly they have come from? Except Article 21 of Indian Constitution, no law is there to protect, promote, and encourage human rights of these people. I mean, internally displaced persons. Have they come from other nations? No. They are from your own country. Your own brothers and sisters are separated. It is because of a mega project issued by the central or state governments are concerned. So that's why you should be careful when you are actually running with human discourses of these people, especially internally displaced persons are concerned. In Jammu, we are witnessing more than 280,000 Pandits who were actually migrated from Kashmir Valley. They are living in Kashmir Valley. It is actually unprecedented. It was because of clash between these two segments of the society, Hindus and Muslims. And majority of the Pandits were actually migrated to Jammu, settled in Jammu. And moreover, no rehabilitation has been made so far. And this is one of the responsibilities on the part of a central government to understand the problems of internally displaced persons, country like India as such. And moreover, if rather I would say, in 2005, we had a bill before Parliament, but it was unsuccessful due to political ideologies, country like India as such. Thanks to United Nations organization and thanks to Secretary General of United Nations organization for appointing, Francis Deng of Sudan, one who could, research on IDP all over the world. In 1998, he came across with guiding principles on the protection of internally displaced persons. These are the basic guiding principles we have with a view to understand internal displaced persons, a country like India. Why don't we want to borrow such kind of international human rights law into the municipal law? We need it. And moreover, as I said, international human rights law is nothing but complementary, residuary, and supplementary to the national legislations or policies that should have been looked upon. So that's why, of course, this is one of the glaring examples I'm just sharing with you on internally displaced persons. Of course, no doubt, there are so many challenges of internally displaced persons, a country like India. And moreover, as you have already been understood, based on certain policies, when you are actually making some policies, don't be an artificial. You have to be natural. One should put aside and personal grudges when you are actually making some policies. You know very well, an egoistic person will never ever die because he has no human body. That should have been looked upon. And nobody is actually superior or inferior. All are equally fitting. This is what your Chinese philosophy has already been outspoken. What Chinese philosophy has already been outspoken. Look at your Lao Tse and Confucius philosophy. What they said? They say that one should condemn an artificial life. You should grow naturally. How plants and trees are growing. They don't require any help from anybody. They're developing like anything. Being a human, you should know how to grow in this society. First of all, you have to understand the law of nature. Through law of nature, you can understand. Especially in these days, there are so many challenges between human being and the law of nature as such. This is one of the aspects which shall also be looked upon. I must share with you, nature will never ever compromise with you. You have to compromise with the law of nature. Otherwise, nature will take retaliation and reprisal against a human being. That should have been looked upon. And moreover, if rather I would say, when you are actually running with these rights, which are highly expressive at the national or international level, should be emphasized on the basis of human values or law of nature, law of nature. That is very, very important from the point of view of understanding the human rights are concerned. There are 6 important areas of inequality in the distribution of goods and opportunities and rights. Have a look on. Inequalities in the distribution of income, inequalities in the distribution of assets, inequalities in the distribution of opportunities for work and remunerated employment, inequalities in the distribution of access to knowledge, inequalities in the distribution of health service, social security, and the provision of a safe environment as such. When you talk on safe environment, you have got so many principles which are highly expressive at the higher level. You have polluter pays principle, you have sustainable development, you have intergenerational equity, you have precautionary principle, you have common but differentiated responsibility, you have common heritage of mankind. All these principles are there. Look at some of the declarations, resolutions passed at the international level. You have Stockholm Declaration 1972, Rio de Janeiro Declaration 1992, Earth Summit you have Cartagena Declaration, you have Nagoya Protocol 2010, in which India has already been signed on the record and expressed certain protocols at the lower level also, especially at the local level. That is there, no issue. See, in India, we have had more than 200 legislations which are addressing the issues of a safe environment. That's why I must share with you, you have to accustom to the custom of the law of nature. Otherwise, the nature will take retaliation and reprisal against a human being. Dear participants, if rather I would say, if you are closer to high temperature, the high fertility will come. When you have got high fertility, population will be increased. When you have got population, high population, obviously problems are quite common all over the world. This and that. You have child labor, you have problems of women, children. orphans, internally displaced persons, or refugees. In India, we have had so many refugees. You have Chakmas, you have Tibetans, you have Nepalis, you have Rohingyas. Where exactly they have come from? What are their issues and challenges? That has to be looked upon. Of course, these are the glaring examples when you are actually running with the human rights are concerned. Of course, to overcome all these issues and challenges, of course, we have to give an education. What kind of an education you are just disseminating to the people? That's very, very important. You have to understand human resources, even from the perspective of National Education Policy 2020, how in what manner national education policies are actually helpful to overcome long-standing issues and challenges a country like India as such. What is an education? This is what your Swami Vivekananda has already been emphasized. An education shall not be put into your brain. There shall be assimilation of knowledge, character building, and man making. You have to teach your students how to behave with somebody. That is very, very important. You know very well, I'm not living alone. I'm living with my wife. I'm living with my kids. I'm living with my fellow human being, colleagues, general public. I should know how to behave with somebody. That is all about human rights education. Everything should be taught accordingly. The moral values should also be looked upon. And moreover, you have to understand certain challenges which are highly expressive. As I said in many platforms, my wife cannot ask me to have mother room. I'm biologically imbalanced. How can I have mother room? There are some controversial issues. Look at some of the issues and challenges of LGBT. It is because of biological imbalances they are begging like anything. They are also human beings, no doubt, from the point of view of understanding Article 21 of the Constitution of India. Right to life includes the dignity of a human being, shall also be looked upon. And moreover, if rather I would say Article 21 of Indian Constitution, that itself is a primordial right, without which other rights cannot be enjoyable. That should have been looked upon. Especially in these days, it is because of caste and religious perceptions. People are actually being killed in the name of religion, in the name of caste. You are killing people, you are targeting people. What is religion? Religion is a pathway to realize the God. That should have been looked upon when it comes to the knowledge of Article 25 of the Constitution of India as such. Otherwise, how can you understand, constitutional checks and balances are concerned? Even in Leviathan, Thomas Hobbes, who otherwise believed in absolute power of the ruler, too does not allow the king to violate the right of an individual to have life. If something has gone wrong to your human rights, you cannot bring it to my notice. You can only bring it to the notice of a government by filing writ petitions. You have 5 writ petitions, you know very well. Under Article 226 and 227 of the Constitution, you will be actually moving to high courts. Under Article 32, you will be moving to Supreme Court of India. So that's why it is one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to promote and encourage human rights of a human being. According to Locke, what he has emphasized, states should exist only to protect natural rights of individuals, that is, right to life, property, and liberty as such. Earlier, what had happened? You know very well. before the coming into force of all these specific legislations, your temple was supreme, mosque was supreme, church was supreme. Put it in a proper way, religion was supreme. We did not find any boundaries. We did not find any visa passport to visit other countries. Human migration was quite common all over the world. I agree with you. No matter. See, when it comes to the knowledge, these perceptions, this is one of the analysis I have in my mind. Earlier, what had happened? You had huge natural resources, less population. Now you have more population, less natural resources. That's why your Earth planet is going to become smaller and smaller. That's why you are quarreling each other when it comes to the knowledge of right to life, property, and liberty. Of course, no doubt, as far as human rights are concerned, there are some directions emphasized through Greek philosophy, Roman philosophy, and the developments which were highly expressive on the base of Renaissance or age of enlightenment. Thanks to Hobbes' law Crusoe. So based on their social contract theory, they expressed that it was one of the responsibilities on the part of a state to render justice to a common man. A person who is actually sitting before me is a human being. A person who is actually standing before honorable courts is also a human being. That has to be looked upon. Otherwise, how can you understand human rights from different dimensions are concerned? Look at almost every day, there are chilling instances of violence, ethnic cleansing, heinous torture, child abuse, manslaughter, and several other human rights violations all over the world. Unimaginable proportions of gross violations of human rights are actually being committed even at this juncture. Although you have had so many specific legislations and international covenants, the gross violation of human rights are actually being committed. What the hell is going on, and where exactly you can find some solutions to overcome gross violation of human rights all over the world? Of course, it requires a lot of drill to understand. Look at in India, how many rapes are committed, how many atrocities are being continued. Look at in 2018, there was a case decided by Honorable Supreme Court of India, Kasinath Mahajan versus Union of India, wherein in this case, they directed to file FIR directly. When you had some issues and challenges, in the same year, you had, an amendment made to Atrocities Act 1989. With a view to understand this act, in 2020, in fact, Prithviraj Chauhan versus Union of India. In this particular case, you have actually upheld the amendment which was actually made under Section 18 of Atrocities Act 1989 as such. So these are the developments that are taken place with a view to understand the vulnerable sections of the society, marginalized sections of the society, or the retracted in a society as such. I agree with you. I'm not disputing it. Still, there is a long way with a view to understand gross violation of human rights all over the world as such. It requires a lot of drill. It is one of the responsibilities on the part of the civil society. I must share with you, the entire civil society is responsible for gross violation of human rights of a human being as such, be it women, children, orphans, and many. That is what one has to understand. That's why We have had some philosophical foundations. There are some roots through which you can understand philosophical foundations of human rights. They are there in your religion, they are there in your natural law, they are there in your positive law, they are there in your Marxism, sociological approaches, all in all. That is what. What is the origin of human rights? Since its inception, you have been actually following these human rights from different perceptions are concerned. That should have been looked upon to understand the human rights are concerned. Look at Hugo Grotius's philosophy, who is the actually father of international law. In the 16th century, in fact, he wrote two main books, De Jure Belli Ac Pacis and Mare Liberam, War and Peace. That should have been actually looked upon with a view to understand Hugo Grotius' approaches on war and peace as such. This is what your Leo Tolstoy has also been emphasized. What he says, Leo Tolstoy, one of the first conditions of the happiness is to bridge the gap between man and nature. That shall not be broken. That shall not be broken. Whatever it has been actually expressed by these philosophical foundations by way of Greek philosophy, Thomas Aquinas' philosophy, Hugo Grotius' philosophy, John Locke's philosophy. Of course, these philosophical foundations were emphasized on the basis of morality in the society as such. We need to have morality, without which how can you understand human rights of these from a different dimensions are concerned. These are the history you have. Perhaps you may have gone through history of human rights. We have had Magna Carta, the Petition of Rights, Bill of Rights, then Declaration of Rights, American Declaration of Human Rights. We have American Bill of Rights. We have based on these rights, we have established human rights law from a different dimensions are concerned. Apart from these, you have had so many international instruments. Kindly have a look on. You have UDSR 1948. You have ICCPR 1966. Then you have Genocide Convention 1948. You have Convention on Torture and Other Cruel, Inhuman or Degrading Treatment or Punishment 1984. You have, of course, no doubt, when we talk on these human rights are actually divided into these three main perspectives. You have Eurocentric approach, you have a US-centric approach, and you have Asia-Afro-centric approach. When you are actually dealing with the Asia-Afro-centric approach, there are so many issues and challenges at the higher level assets. How will you enforce these rights? Enforcement can be done through local, national, state, regional, and UNOS level. So through which you can understand the enforcement of human rights from different dimensions. Of course, no doubt, when you are actually running with human rights, there are some vitiated circles. It is because of these vitiated circles, it may not be possible to have some concrete solutions at the international level as such. You have military, communism, socialism, dictatorship, and democracy as such. So that's why all human rights are actually gambling with these developments which are highly expressive at the higher level as such. Of course, there are some derivatives or derivations when it comes to the human rights. You have religion, as I said. Religion is a pathway to realize the God. You may be belonging to any religious fanatism or fundamentalism, no matter. Religion is a faith, a belief in your own God. It is up to you to decide. This is what right to freedom of religion, as it is overemphasized under Article 25 of Indian Constitution, shall also be looked upon in order to understand religious fanatism or fundamentalistic approaches vis-a-vis human rights discourses are concerned. When you deal with human rights, there are some challenges should also be looked upon. Look at civil law and common law. What is civil law? In civil law, there shall be some hard legislations, whereas in case of common law, along with the hard legislations, you give more importance to interpretation of statute. That's why very, very important with you to understand a dichotomy between civil law and the common law as such. In India, except Goa, we deal with the common law. In uh, except Scotland, UK has been dealing with common law. Except Louisiana, United States of America has been actually dealing with the common law. Except Quebec, Canada has been dealing with the common laws. There are some diversifications. I agree with you. With a view to understand, international human rights law or human rights in nutshell as such. So these rights are actually internationally guaranteed, legally protected, focus on dignity of human being, protect individuals and groups, oblige states and state actors, cannot be waived or be taken away by anyone. Equal, independent, they're all universal. Please understand. That's why I must share with you, your human rights are nothing but basic rights, natural, inalienable, instrumental, integrated, holistic. They are there everywhere. There are no boundaries when it comes to the knowledge of application of these rights all along. That has to be looked upon. This is what Article 55 and 56 of UN Charter. They have already been outspoken with a view to protect, promote, and encourage human rights at the national and international level. This is what you have these statistics, yes, emphasized by Amnesty International. You have all these civil rights like fair trial, privacy, freedom of movement, asylum, nationality, then own property, all in all you have. You have freedom, political rights, freedom of speech and expression. This is what one has to understand as per as Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution of India. All rights which are guaranteed under the Part 3 of Indian Constitution are not absolute, subject to certain limitations that has to be looked into. And very well, freedom of speech and expression is not absolute, subject to certain limitations, shall also be looked upon. You have all these economic rights. I live here. What are the major complaints should be brought before NHRC? So these are the complaints should be brought before National Human Rights Commission, without which it should be virtually impossible to understand these rights are concerned. We get violence through introduction, indoctrination. That's one of the major issues we have, especially at the international level. Instead of just giving pen to these people, you are just giving rifles to wage war with your own neighboring countries are concerned. It is actually inhuman. It should be booked as if a war crime before ICC, that's International Criminal Court. Poverty, this is what you know very well. Perhaps you may have gone through what is poverty from different dimensions are concerned. To overcome poverty, it requires a lot of drill. Moreover, you know very well, look at even in Ramayana, when Shabari met Rama, she did not find any, North Indian food or South Indian food. She had just white foods, gave them to Rama and worshipped Rama. Even in Mahabharata also, Ashwatthama used to drink milk powder rather than real milk as such. One fine day, he tasted real milk and asked a fundamental question to his mother, "What is this?" Then she started crying. It was because of poverty. I was just giving you a milk powder rather than real milk acid. Poverty, it is there everywhere. Even in Mahabharata and Ramayana, you are witnessing poverty, no matter however it could be. Of course, there are some issues and challenges. Refugee crisis you have, IDP, internal displacement. We have the statelessness issues and challenges you have, child labor you have, all in all you have had. Who are all these refugees? Refugee is a person who has been actually fled his home country due to well-founded fear and persecution. In India, we have as many as refugees as we have already been known. access to education shall also be looked upon, but we are not actually giving good education to the people. That's one of the major issues and challenges we have. Thanks to the policymakers who have expressed in National Education Policy 2020. Look at how, in what manner national education policy will be helpful to overcome gross violation of human rights country like India as such. And child neglect is also quite common, and it is because of interpersonal issues and challenges you are practicing child neglect even in India also. This prostitution is one of the major issues, and the traffic and slavery is also quite common. The military use of children is also one of the major examples we have. Then statelessness all over the world. We have had more than 10 million people are actually stateless. I mean, 10 million people worldwide have no nationality. Nationality. What is nationality? Nationality is nothing but membership of a with a particular state as such. I mean to say that there shall be a relationship between individual and a state through which you can understand the nationality as such. That's one of the major aspects we have. And moreover, we have had more than 26.4 million internally displaced people all over the world, especially in Cambodia, Iraq, and Sudan are actually quite common. Unprecedented issues and challenges, in fact, are actually being held, especially in these countries also. And moreover, if rather I would say, there are some asylum seekers in mid 2014. There were more than 1.2 million asylum seekers all over the world. They are highly vulnerable. So what I would like to share with you, and as I've already been made it clear, you have to give voice to the voiceless, and fruits of justice should be shared to the people who are left out in the society as a whole. Although we have had so many specific legislations at the national and international level, the vulnerable sections of the society is actually being targeted all over the world as such. We need to have some action plan. Otherwise, it would be virtually impossible to live as a human being as such. Thanks to National Human Rights Commission, which has taken very good steps to understand some of the issues, especially in Gujarat, right? Punjab mass cremation, then starvation death in Orissa, encounter deaths in Andhra Pradesh, deaths due to silicosis, especially in India as such. Of course, no doubt, the way in which the steps taken by National Human Rights Commission and State Human Rights Commissions shall also be looked upon once again, and hope there won't be any gross violation of human rights in a near future as such. And moreover, we have to understand the problems of human being from a different dimensions are concerned. Of course, no doubt, there are so many big challenges when it comes to the knowledge of practical application of human rights all along. See, all human rights are not in fact absolute, subject to certain limitations. Subject to certain limitations in the sense that subject to certain resources available in the country as such. On the basis of resources available in the country, you can resolve some of the issues and challenges with reference to the subject matter of human rights are concerned. With this, I take this opportunity to thank each one of you for taking some time to be a part of this session. If you have got some questions, I'll be answerable to your queries. Over to you.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, good evening.
Sir, we explained so many things regarding with NHRC and the human rights and everything. If there is any particular correlations between the Paris Principle as well as NHRC, sir?
Tell me once again, Paris.
Paris Principle as well as NHRC. Any correlation is there, sir?
There is a correlation because as far as Article 253 of the Constitution of India, constitutional validity of public interest has already been known to us. And moreover, if rather I would say, the transformation of Paris agreements into the municipal, has already been known to us, and there won't be any, what shall I say, intricacies between these two, Paris and the way in which we have had some specific legislations at the local level as such. See, there shall be coordinations between these two. Otherwise, how can you understand? And moreover, if rather I would say, India is actually known for its international relations. This is what one has to understand. And moreover, all these specific international covenants which are highly expressive at the higher level, they're all, residuary and supplementary to the municipal law as such. They should go hand in hand when it comes to the knowledge of issues and challenges of human rights are concerned. In that context, I don't think there is a intricacies between Paris Agreement and the local legislations in which we have gone through step by step in order to understand the human rights of a human being country like India. And moreover, National Human Rights Commission has been actually dealing with um, international covenants also. Uh, we have already been participated in many international conferences with a view to understand the protection, promotion, and encouragement of human rights even at the local level also. So in that context, thanks to National Human Rights Commission, actually transforming or incorporating such kind of international human rights law into the municipal law as such.
Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have some more observations or questions? As far as your query is concerned, of course, it requires a lot of drill. Kindly have a look on challenges to human rights implementation, especially a country like India as such. See, what you will do, you'll go there and sign on the record, come home happily without ratification. So there is a weak record of ratification. That's one of the major challenges we have. And moreover, under Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties 1969, this is one of the responsibilities shouldered on the part of a state to ratify international conventions. That's very, very important. Once you have become one of the member countries of these covenants, it is your responsibility to ratify it, or else you should have parliamentarian approval under Article 253 of the Constitution of India. As I said, the constitutional validity of a public international law has already been emphasized at the higher level as such. It requires a lot of time, to understand the transformation of such kind of international human rights law into the municipal law as such. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Okay,
sir,
sir.
just a minute, sir. Sir,
Sir.
just a minute, sir.
Yeah.
Devraj, sir, any question is there?
No, sir. What up? Thanks, ಹೇಳಿ. ನೀವ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ
Okay, that's what, sir. Sir, very good evening, sir. I'm Dr. Jayaprasad. Actually, your student friend, sir, actually Kumar is right now working in Vidyavartak, I think.
Yeah.